It was winter, it was January 2017. And as spring came, I started growing things. I'd always grown things in London on balconies or windowsills and longed to grow flowers. So suddenly I was like, oh, I can. So I started giving it a go with really mixed success, some triumphs and some disasters, but loved it so much and was still commuting back during the week for work. And it hit me, I think, the second year that I was working on the land. I was out there at like 6 a.m. on a Monday morning, weeding, so desperate not to get on the train that I was like, I just have to figure out how the hell people make a living from being outside, because I just cannot get on a train again. So it is completely wrapped up with my boyfriend, because this is my boyfriend's land and he was living in London and we were living about half a mile apart from each other in Hackney, and he made the decision to leave London, which obviously I was like, are you serious?
You're either ready or you're not.
Yeah, right. Travels a lot for work anyway. He's a musician and he was away most of the time, so I was there just being like, well, okay, so when you're back here, you're just not going to be here. So we had to have like a big discussion of what it was going to be and how it was going to look. And I really loved living. I lived with my sisters and some friends in a big old dilapidated flat share, and I really loved it. And I was really not ready to leave. And I was born in London, brought up in London, and I've never lived rural. And I know that I've always longed to sort of live out of busyness, and always used to sort of pretend on the weekend, like go to the flower market and cycling through the canals, the heath, and always pretending that I lived not in London. But I just was not ready. And so he grew up around here, and his mum is not well, and his dad is her full-time carer, so he knew that he just had to make the decision now. He was ready to do it. He was going to go, and there was absolutely no fighting or talking him out of it. So he found this place, and I, in my sort of trying to figure out what it meant for us, we'd only been together, I mean, I'd known him for a really long time, but we'd only been together for a short while. I didn't come and see the place, and I just sort of pretended it wasn't happening. And the first few months that he lived here, I just sort of came on the weekends and fell so deeply in love with it that I was like, oh, well, I'm going to have to move in with you. I'm sorry. So I moved in, and I still had my job in London and my life in London. And the day that I first saw this place, I cried with fear about living somewhere that was dark. I was really afraid of the dark because London ought to be afraid of the dark. And I think I slept here on my own within the first couple of weeks, because he goes away so much. I was like, I'm just going to have to be here. I'm going to have to get used to it. And then I just when it started, it was winter, it was January 2017. And as spring came, I started growing things. I'd always grown things in London on balconies or windowsills and longed to grow flowers. So suddenly I was like, oh, I can. So I started giving it a go with really mixed success, some triumphs and some disasters, but loved it so much and was still commuting back during the week for work. And it hit me, I think, the second year that I was working on the land. I was out there at like 6 a.m. on a Monday morning, weeding, so desperate not to get on the train that I was like, I just have to figure out how the hell people make a living from being outside, because I just cannot get on a train again. So I slowly figured it out, and I went a lot more freelance than I was. I was an archivist and an actor. So archivist make money, and actor was my passion and what I trained as. So I started going more freelance with the archiving, and then started practicing on my friends' weddings with flowers, and then just slowly but surely carved it out. And it wasn't until last year that I had my year mapped out, which was full-time flowers. And then obviously the pandemic hit, and I remember just feeling like everything that I'd spent 4 years working towards was dashed. But my grandmother was staying with us at the time, and she said, "Don't be ridiculous, pull yourself together, you can make it work." So it actually was really, the pandemic for me beginning was really such a kick towards putting all my energy into not worrying about, I knew that I wouldn't be able to go and commute and do freelance jobs, and I knew that acting wouldn't be happening at all. So it really gave me the freedom to put all my energy into this. And I can really, looking back, I can really see that, how that energetic sort of push and has really helped my business to be a lot stronger. So I think that was a really good thing to have.
I think there's lots of people in this world have sort of that double life, and you know, me included. And it's really interesting because I think I might just have to own this and say, for me, because I was going to talk generally, but actually for me, I think one of the reasons that I have a double life is, I think partly because a bit of a project of our education system and things like that, there's a bit of a sense of you should have a proper job that will sort of support you, and you know, is reliable and is sort of really fits the mold of what I think, you know, the education system and schools really want you to do. They don't say, "Well, do you fancy being a flower grower?" They don't say that. They say, you know, sit in an office, do this, work hard, all of that. And it's so interesting that it sounds like there was a sort of a period where emotionally you were desperate to let go of that, but you sort of couldn't quite make that pull. But then the pandemic came, and then the decision was made for you. And a bit like your boyfriend moving, it feels like sometimes the stars align, and it's like, well, this is it. You've just got to, you know, your feelings and your heart follow events, and then, you know, the logic and the pragmatism and the planning has to sort of catch up with it, and then you just somehow have to make it work.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I'm such a planner, and I really have to work really hard on letting go of things and making sure that I'm making the right decisions comes into that. And I think that when it is sort of made for you, or just so much clearer with just like a 2 decision, like it's a yes or a no.
And I think in a lot of ways, you know, resilience in people and resilience in businesses is being able to sort of, you know, stuff happens, stuff really does happen. People get sick, people get, you know, unwell, pandemics happen, you know, housing issues happen, things happen, and it's about, I think, finding how you can sort of follow your heart within those constraints of life. We don't have, you know, all the options in the world. We have what happens to us as well. And it sounds like you found a lot of joy in that, and you found something incredibly special in that. So
definitely. And I think that it's what I've noticed is how much more myself and how much happier I feel. And I would never have like doing what I do now, and I would never have known that, because I grew up in an urban environment with very little access to outdoor space, and it's just like a complete life change. And I feel like myself, which is such a strange, odd thing to have spent like 30 years of my life being me, but just not feeling like where I should be. And it feels really great, and I feel really lucky. And
what's that about, do you think? Because I can completely relate to that. And you know, sometimes when I'm writing about seed growing, and I sort of say slightly flippantly, because it's not as easy as this, and we all know it's not as easy as this, like it's like it's in our DNA to grow things. You know, once we transition from hunter-gatherers to sort of, you know, human beings as an agricultural, you know, we put down roots, literally. We put down roots in a place, and we invested in an area of ground, and we said, we are going to be here when this, you know, this plant has something that we can harvest. We located ourselves somewhere. And I do think there is something really inherently important to us, that we have roots, we have a place where we can put down. I mean, I'm London born as well, although I moved around most of the UK as a child, so I don't necessarily feel, but I do feel, I remember when I go back to London, I felt a sense of coming home to something but it only lasted about 24 hours. And then I'm like, oh no, I need to get back to, I need to get back to something that is touchable.
Yeah.
Like you say, where it gets dark at night, where you can feel the air and the ground and the rain, and you can see the growth and the season and all of that. And I think there is something about London which can be so invigorating and inspiring and wonderful, but it also doesn't always feel real.
Yeah, I mean, I love London. London is in my heart. I love it so much. But one of the biggest things that I learned being here and not London was that seasons, like there's minute seasons all the time. And I had no idea, because you just see like, oh, it's autumn because there's leaves on the floor. And now it's winter because it's really cold and I don't really want to go outside. And rain is really humid because everyone's coats are wet. And now it's summer and everyone's wearing tank tops. Like there was no minutiae of seasons, and I was amazed. I was like, I'm amazed by the weather now. I mean, I'm obsessed with the weather now, watching the mists roll in. I'll call my dad and he's watching the mists in East Sussex, and I'm just talking to him about, oh, here they come, oh yeah, they're very thick today. I just love it. And I just never had any of that when I was in London. So I'm sure it's something to do with like connecting to the earth and what's happening around us in a completely different way. I'm sure it is.
Tell me a little bit about your growing space.
So my growing space, I have to sort of fight him for it. So it started out, there was a little veg patch, and the lady before was really big into looking after her garden, and she'd been here for 42 years and was a great grower. And when she heard that I would be moving in, she sort of grilled me a bit and was like, do you garden? I was like, not really.
But I'm going to.
A lot of enthusiasm for it. And I think she like rolled her eyes. And it started out really small, and I dug loads of stuff in. I did all the reading and I dug stuff in, and it was weed hell. So I knew that I loved it and I knew that I wanted to make it bigger, but the weeding was a problem, seeing as I was like doing my like 9 to 5 and juggling and the acting, all the other stuff, and doing the commute. And I was like, well, I just need to figure this out. So I invested in Charles Downing course. I took my boyfriend for his birthday, lucky man.
How funny. And, Charles Downing is the one course my husband has been on, actually. Similarly, I think he bought it for my birthday, but he came too.
I mean, it was fantastic. It was so inspiring and so life-changing. So we immediately did no dig from then. And I can't blow its trumpet enough. It's totally incredible. The vigor of the plants, the sort of the way that I work now is so much easier, manageable for me, and there's so few weeds, and we're really boggy here. We're in a sort of dip, and it's the muddiest winters. It's like bogland. So the no dig really helps it rain, and we're on heavy clay, so it can be a bit like a plug. So it's been amazing, which allowed me to sort of make bigger space. But so my boyfriend, while he's off, one of his big dreams of moving here was to become a cider maker, because he used to help the local cider maker where he grew up. So he's been doing that for learning about it for the last 5 years. And he's been doing it now for 3, making it, and he's finally, so he's doing champagne method, and it is super proud of him. It's do
you want to do a plug for the business, just because actually I really want to know, because I'm like, oh.
It's called Two Orchards, and it will launch next year, and there'll be honey and cider, so because he keeps bees as well. But it means that he's been planting orchards, which is great, because we've got a little bit of wildflower meadow that's natural, that we really think it's important to keep and preserve, and then the trees and the bees and my flowers mean that it's really biodiverse, and I like that, but it means that I'm fighting for space all the time. So my space is actually really, really tiny, and it is really inefficient, because I will grab a back corner, or I'm like, can I have that bit? And I have to sort of really advocate for myself and then just do it, and then he's always pleased. But it is a little bit, it's a tricky one because, you know, inevitably you can't rely on a relationship to keep your growing space.
Yeah.
If you're just boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. So this is some big news, and I'm touching wood right now just in case it doesn't go ahead. But there is this disused nursery, 800 meters as the crow flies, but it's like sort of a 5-minute drive, 20-minute walk, and it's got a bit of land and these great big greenhouses and a car park. And I know, and I'm in negotiations for the rent of that.
Oh my goodness, that's so exciting.
And it's amazing. I know it's only about half an acre, but it's just ideal.
Glass houses there. There's a place on the other side of Taunton for me, and it's similar. I think it's an old disused nursery, and someone called Nicola Kavanagh was growing in there. She's moved now, and I just stood, like, I have a greenhouse, like I have a tiny epoxy greenhouse, don't have photo, don't have anything, and I literally just stood, and they are things of beauty. They just, that would be, imagine what you could do with that.
I'm so excited. So fingers crossed. I spoke to her again yesterday, and it looks like it might be a June sort of start. So I might be able to get a crop out of it, or just get it ready for next year. But it's such a big undertaking. I think that I've done like a business plan, crunched my numbers, which is not my strong point, and I think I can work, but it is absolutely terrifying and exciting in equal measure. So that's some big news. Fingers crossed.
A huge step.
Yeah.
Is this like less clay there as well? That's the other thing. Is it not in a boggy dip?
Similarly, but I don't mind clay because of no dig. It retains loads of the nutrients.
I get great roses. Great roses.
But it also just means that I also don't have to keep fighting my boyfriend for more growing space. And because we're on a really, really steep lane that's really difficult to get down, everything is sort of brought down in small quantities. And really, when you're doing no dig, I make my own compost. It would be great to have some more, and to be able to sort of mechanize it in some small way. I mean, it's just, at the moment, it's just me wheelbarrowing for many, many, many days of the year. I mean, I'm really strong, but it would be nice to be more efficient.
Just the odd lorry load of Viridor keeps me going, I have to say. I mean, we've now got quite a good compost setup, but you wouldn't believe how much compost you need to. I mean, like you, I'm topping up now, you know, having started no dig 5 or 6 years in, so we've had a couple of years where we've really top dressed. But you do, every so often a lorry is worth its weight in gold. So I need to be able to expand. I would need lorry access just for exceptional amounts of compost. From no dig, what would your big tips be about how to get a patch of land growing, and how to get started, and how to set yourself up for success later on? I think we've all done that thing where we've dug everything over, and then the couch grass and the bindweed has come back with a vengeance. What other tips have you got for sort of people who might be starting out a bit more?
Okay. The tips would be, you will kill a lot of things. It doesn't mean that you're not good at this. That's a really important thing to know.
Yeah.
And the other ones are that they just need what humans need, essentially, which is water and food and a nice place to live. And that if you give them those things, they will thrive. A good tip that I've got is I always have an extra. I always sow more than I think. Mm-hmm. And then I have extra to bung in where something hasn't made it. That means that then it's just full all the time. And I think that's been really helpful for me, because a lot of books that you read just say just do everything in rows and lines, and that is a really efficient way of working. So that is really good, but then inevitably something won't make it for some random reason that is out of your control. So just bung something else in there, and then you have a very full pot, and you're less likely to look at the gaps and think you're rubbish at it.
I mean, when I wrote the sort of a seed sowing guide, which was a bit of a download of everything that I knew about seed sowing, and people talk about how wonderful gardening is for mental health, and it's great and it's therapy. I was like, if you're going to use it as therapy, pick really easy things to sow, because there are some things. I mean, I think everyone's got something that they really struggle with. Like me and Aquilegia, just it's one of those things.
They're easy. And radishes. I can't grow radishes.
I can't germinate.
And everyone's like that.
You know, everyone's got something. But you don't have to take it personally. It's like, you know, it's like when someone doesn't call you back after a date, you're like, oh my God, it's me. Oh my God. Oh my God, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? Like, you will take these things really personally because we're designed to, and that's it. But so I do say, you know, if you're feeling a bit vulnerable, you know, don't try Icelandic poppies.
Don't.
Yeah, you want to get some sweet peas in and just, you know, and some microgreens, you'll be fine. But I think you're right. I think the books sometimes, because for obvious reasons, books are written by very experienced gardeners who don't always, I think, know how to identify the process that they do so naturally. And I have found that with a lot of, I think it's a bit of a feature of creative people, that so much of creativity, and I absolutely include gardening in that as sort of a creative expression, and floristry particularly, people, and I wonder if acting's a bit the same, people don't always know what they're doing in order to be able to articulate, because they're just so innately doing it. You know when someone's got it wrong. But
I think that's exactly right. It's really hard to dissect what the process is. And I'm really a new grower, and it's even hard for me now dissecting it, even though I'm inexperienced and still learning, so I'm still thinking about it. But because of the practical experience, you just start getting a feel for things, and you sort of can tell when something's planted too deeply or being overwatered or not got enough water. You just start to sense those things, and rather than, and then it becomes subconscious and immediately goes out your brain and
into your motor memory sort of thing. Yeah. I'm doing a lot of writing at the moment for Gather about the first stage of planning your garden, which is, you know, mine's very much in change at the moment because I'm starting to grow for my community, and we're trying to be much more self-sufficient in terms of food as a village. Whereas before, I was a bit more of a traditional flower grower, you know, right back in the day, I did weddings. I don't anymore. I grow a lot for seed, obviously, for the business. And now things are shifting again. So I think starting from what you want from the space, and it's interesting you talking about having to sort of fight for the space and sort of, you know, catching little corners and stuff, and I guess that changed a lot for you with the pandemic, that, you know, the weddings were cancelled and a lot of the event work was cancelled. Has that changed how you've used your space? Has that changed your relationship to your space?
Yeah, in a big way. I think that's such a good question and something that I haven't really pondered on, but it was a big sort of theme of last year. And so last year was the first year that I had workshops and weddings, events, all back to back booked up, and I had my year mapped out, the flowers mapped out, I had the funds mapped out, and then the specific flowers as well. So I grew some rowdy stuff for a couple of workshops, and I grew some really demure stuff for weddings, and suddenly I had all these random flowers that didn't necessarily go together, or like were sort of orchestrated to sort of come together in like, oh, this week's gonna all be blue, and this week's gonna be all be white, and which does not really lend itself to sort of market bouquets. But I sort of dealt with that by just doing, you're gonna get what you get. If you want my flowers, you're just going to get a beautiful bunch. I promise they'll be beautiful, but you can't really decide what they're going to be because it's already been mapped out. And it's not sort of designed for you. It was people seem to enjoy that. And this year, I actually really, really loved growing for loads of people, or harvesting for loads of people, I guess, like opening it up to anyone who wanted the flowers. And I don't think I'll go back to just weddings ever again, because I like the bespoke nature, and I like making a relationship with the person that I was growing it for a special thing. But there's a huge pressure that comes with that that I actually found quite stressful. And when someone buys a bunch of flowers, I have to write out the notes with my little pen, which means I sort of feel like I'm part of their, in a small way, part of their sort of gesture of love or care. And I have loved that so much. That's been really moving, and I really don't want to lose that. It's such a delicious sort of part of my business and people are just so happy to receive flowers in that capacity, which is really nice, and I get lots of lovely messages and it is really really nice.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose that. So that's changed the way that I'm going to grow in the future. And so that my why has changed dramatically in the last year. And I thought I wouldn't ever want to do sort of bouquets like that, because you don't get such a big return. And it sort of becomes 80% shipping logistics, which is not that fun. But the payoff is in what it means, and the why I'm doing it is much greater. So yeah, it's been a good change.
Somebody that inspired me hugely and probably is single-handedly responsible for me getting into this is Miss Pickering. Did you read Miss Pickering's blog back in the day?
No, I never did. Is it?
Go back, find it. I still go back to it. You know, I'm reading blog posts from 15 years ago or something ridiculous, but they still make me laugh. And she said for many years that she's always being asked to write a book about flowers. And she says, floristry is not about flowers, it's about people. I want to write the book about the people. And
I love that.
I think you're right. When I did weddings and I had the best brides, don't get me wrong, I had lovely brides and grooms. Sorry, that's so gendered. Sorry, the loveliest couples. But you're part of, and when I got married, I totally understood it. You're part of a big machine and you're part of a sort of like a day, and it's not just about you. There's, you know, a caterer and a this and a that and everything, and it's just an absolute bloody nightmare. Whereas when I send a box of seeds to someone, it's from me to them. And there's a moment in their day when they open that, and that means something.
Yeah.
And like you, I have a pen and I write, you know, all my notes and all my cards.
When I bought seeds from you, I've kept your notes. I love them. They're so nice. It's something, you know, I don't keep sort of like typed things or anything, but the fact that it's like handwritten and it's so beautiful, like the way that you wrap things, it really feels like it's a very human interaction, and it feels like there's an intimacy to it, which I think is really special.
And I think part of that is because I truly believe in the magic of seeds. So sort of going back to what we were talking about at the beginning about, you know, I do genuinely believe that there is something about growing that is both an incredibly human endeavor, but it's also a bit magic. It's a little bit like there's something a bit like you said about the sweet peas. You sort of look at them and you think, oh, how did I do this?
It's like Fantasia or something. Like there's always something in my mind that like I can't remember what childhood memory it is, but it's from some kind of crazy magic film. Sometimes I feel like I'm just like doing this and there's like great big news behind me, and I'm like doing this and the earth is like just giving me blooms. I just love it. Magic.
Yeah, I mean, a good day I feel like that. On a bad day I'm like, why are these peonies not flowering? Yeah, the answer's always they're planted too deep. Mine are not planted too deep, but anyway. But yes, there is something, and I think, and I can remember where I was sitting when the idea of selling seeds came to me, because like it was always the most wonderful part of my year was getting my seed box out in sort of February, March time, and just like rummaging at the potential. You know, by August I was burnt out and I was knackered and I hadn't got on top of my weeding, and you know, I still can't germinate spinach, but there is something about the potential of seeds that is just, you don't know if they're not going to work yet. You don't.
Addictive. Very addictive. I mean, it's a bit like gotta catch them all. It's like having every Pokemon. I just want all of them. It's a real problem. I actually have a real problem with it.
I set up my business to fund my seed addiction.
Yeah. Oh, me too. I was like, I have to make this work financially because I want them all, and I can't afford to have them all if I don't make it pay for itself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I just, the writing pretty notes and sending people stuff in boxes is just a sideline to the fact that I'm like, I have to stack everything this side so you can't see it on camera, but I just have boxes and boxes and boxes of seeds, and it's just like nothing, literally nothing makes me happier. But I never understood why seeds were in such ridiculous packaging. So, I mean, because they're the most beautiful things in the world. So do them justice, you know? make them a pleasure to give to another person. And yeah. But you've branched out into seeds this year. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, I posted on Instagram just like my hand-drawn seed packets. I think I had too much time one weekend, and I got a couple of independent shops around here were like, oh, can we stock them? And I was like, sure. And then I hand drew hundreds of packets, and it took me forever. And then last year, because my income that was mapped out was suddenly drastically sort of halved, and I really needed to make it work. And I needed some more non-perishable things, because the thing with flowers is that they're perishable, and if people aren't buying them that week, then you miss a whole week's worth of finance. So just branching out to things which don't die. And also the stress, I think it came from a moment where I had a really, really bad week and dealing with like a lot of life stuff. And then like the straw on the camel's back happened when like a bunch went missing in the post and then turned up dead 2 days late. And just like the heartbreak, that I really felt a lot of grief, and I'm sure it's because other stuff was happening, but I took it incredibly personally, and I was like, I just can't send perishable flowers through the post anymore. I just can't. It's too stressful. Which I've since like changed my mind. That was just because it was a bad week, but I was like, I have to find a way to make some money this quarter that's non-perishable. So like it was a really hot week as well, and I had to be inside. It was just too hot to be outside. So and I was looking after my sister, so we were just like sitting there and painting, and I was like, I'm gonna make them all. I'm gonna make 50. And then it was like, I did a really small, because I didn't know how it was going to go, and they sold out within a day. And then lots of people kept asking, it takes a lot of, my days are busy all the time, so it takes a lot to like, what it's like to like organize and do the steps. So I'm going to do another small run in February, and then probably do another small run again in the autumn. But I don't think I'll keep it open all the time. It's hard to figure it out, but we'll see bit by bit.
Yeah, I guess the last question I was going to ask, if you could do one thing differently with either the layout or the setup or the sort of starting out of a growing plot. I guess you are starting again, so you can, do whatever you like. What would you do differently?
It's all been really useful. Even the mistakes have been really useful. So I wouldn't do anything differently. But what I will, when I start the new space, I will really consider where I'm going to put things, and I'm going to plant. Well, the thing is that it's a whole new space, so I don't know where the wind comes from yet, but I'll figure out where the wind comes from.
Yeah, I planted my windbreak in the wrong place the first time. Yes. Completely. Yeah.
And I'll invest in shrubs. I was really anti-shrubs when I got like a garden for the first time. I think that I just had been used to my grandmother on my dad's side's garden that was it was like a very like a suburban tiny little plot that was just full of shrubs. I found it very uninspiring. Apart from the pampas grass, I remember she had the pampas grass, and now it makes me think, because but I loved that, but everything else was shrubs. And so I had this sort of a really anti thing, but actually they are the backbone for so many of my bouquets, and they give scent, and they last well in water.
Which would you put up there as your sort of top shrub? I mean, I twitch still like pittosporum and stuff like that. I can't grow it. I'm sorry.
It's hard to grow because it's actually not very hardy. So they do.
Okay. Next door's got a massive, they've got like a row of pittosporum trees, which, if I'm desperate.
Once they're big, they're fine, but when they're small, they can succumb. And there are some varieties that are hardier than others. I don't know them off the top of my head, so I won't tell you.
But no, you do it. What should I plant shrub-wise then?
So 9 bark, that's a really good one, and useful for bouquets. Orphis, I mean, it's just heaven when it flowers. there's so many great things. I mean, Weigler, is that, I don't know how you say it. See,
I know,
so much
I know
time.
exactly what you mean.
I learn all the names. It's like when I read Harry Potter when I was younger, and I called Hermione Hermione.
Hermione, yeah.
I don't know how to actually pronounce any of the flowers that I grow.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
No one ever asks me to.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean though, and I will share a photo so everyone knows. Funnily enough, I have got some Philadelphus. I've got like a cutting hedge, which was meant to be the windbreak, which never really, it wasn't in the right place. And they were this big when I bought them, and they're now, but they have not thrived where they are, and that has inspired me to try again and just put them somewhere different, because they're not happy where they are at all. But I will, yeah. And 9-bark is beautiful.
Yeah,
absolutely beautiful. All the American florists are really into 9-bark, aren't they?
Yeah. It's great because it's got, so there's so many different leaf colours and leaf sizes. I've got this one called Little Joker, I think it is, and it's gorgeous, so delicate. The leaves are like this, and dark purple, like black almost, and then the flowers are pink, very light pink, but then they have these incredible, they don't last that long, but the seeds are like inky and beautiful. So even if you miss the flowers, you've still got great foliage to use. Shrubs I feel like are essential, and I've only just started planting them, so that's what I'd do differently. Have a think about shrubs and plant some good ones.
Tip. I should go and buy some shrubs. I'm moving so much around at this stage of the season. I haven't quite finished where I'm going to put everything, and I do tend to keep my big central bit of my growing area, which is like the no dig bit, so it's very much sort of blank beds, and then I just grow in a bit of a matrix, sort of prairie landscape it, so it's not a traditional cutting garden by any means, but I haven't felt able to commit areas to shrubs necessarily, except right around the edges, so I might rethink that. But I think it's really interesting that, to sort of like going back to something we were talking about earlier about the why and what is it for, and that being a bit of the driving force about what actually do I really want to put in this garden? What do I want? Colour? Do I want shrubs? Do I want structure? Do I want flexibility, of lots of annuals going in, or lots of vegetables going in and coming out and rotating? And I think so many of the questions and the sort of dilemmas can be resolved by starting with what's it for? What are you going to use it for? What's it?
And also like how much budget you have, because shrubs tend to be a bit more a commitment than a packet of seeds. You can get a lot more out of the seeds. But spirea, that's another good one.
Yes.
Shrub. That's really the first one. Yeah, that's a good one. That one's essential. Yeah,
and actually looks really beautiful at lots of different stages, which I think is really nice as well. Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time. It's been so lovely to finally just have a conversation with you.
Such a pleasure. I'm so thrilled to have got the opportunity to chat. Yeah, so fun. I'm so grateful, like be able to sort of geek out in sort of real time with people. Yeah, it's really nice.
Well, I have to say, when I said that I was going to be interviewing you to the members of Gather, I was like, oh my god, she's amazing. Oh my god, she's amazing. And I put something up about, I'm sort of I redo my website about every 6 months, because I love redoing my website. And so it's like, has anyone got any favorite websites? It's like, oh, Milli's website's amazing. So all right, I'll go look at Milli's website.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, everyone said Milli's website's just the best. So
that's so nice. I mean, I redo it all the time. The last time I redid it was October. When I was on holiday in Cornwall. I just spent the whole day on holiday. What am I doing? I just really love it.
I love redoing my website. I love it. Oh god, that's a whole other. We could have an hour of geeking out on websites. It's so satisfying. I love it. I'm having massive rebrand actually in the next couple of months as well, so I'm trying not to tinker too much, because it's just going to be a waste of time. But anyway, so thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.